colleagues, how are you? It'll come as no surprise that I have chosen the topic that's on everyone's lips right now to discuss this evening, partially because of laziness, because it's quite easy to prepare and I didn't have much time, and partially out of interest, because it is an interesting thing. It's on everyone's lips right now. Indeed, it should be, really. This famous transition period will be coming to an end in 15 days, 4 hours, and 47 minutes. Or indeed, 379 hours and 47 minutes. It's true that the transition period is coming to an end at that point. The UK already left the EU officially at the beginning of this year, on the 31st of January. Again, I'm baffled that this was at the beginning of this year. It's been a very long year. Anyway, like I said, the UK left at the beginning of this year, which officially limited its membership of the European Union and its predecessor to 17,196 days, or 412,704 hours. 412,704 hours. And right now, in under 380 hours, the transition period will come to an end, and for all intents and purposes, Brexit will occur. That is a very strange thing to say. Indeed, it's a very odd thing to happen. And it's peculiar for all of us. But it's particularly bizarre for us Irish, I have to say. I don't accuse me of navel-gazing when I say that. Ireland and Britain, for good or for bad, have been intrinsically linked for centuries. Our relationship has often been fraught with problems, admittedly. But it remains an intimate relationship nonetheless, and it has been an intimate relationship for quite some time. I like to almost romantically describe it as a really bad marriage. A bad marriage that ended in a messy divorce, in which we both kind of share custody of Northern Ireland. Now, there is a lot more to it than that, of course. And I'm simplifying things here just for the purpose of the speech, okay? So don't accuse me of anything, and let's just leave it at that. I don't want to go into too many of the gory details of the past. They're too depressing, really. In any case, irrespective of all that, a humour, a sense that we share our sense of humour, a sense of humour that's quite dark and can almost be nasty at times, really, to be honest, but it's funny nonetheless. We converge on many points, but we do diverge on many points too. Apart from the fact that we have officially been two separate states for almost a century now, in Ireland we use the metric system, for instance. We use the euro. We are not part of the Commonwealth, but curiously, we are an observer member of the IOIF, the Francophonie. We joined the organization in 2018. To be fair, French is fairly widely spoken in Ireland. A lot of French people live in Ireland. It's the second most widely spoken, or rather a lot of French speakers live in Ireland. It's the second most widely spoken language in Irish homes, would you believe? A foreign language, and that's after Polish. And we diverge in the fact that, most relevant to this speech, the Irish on the whole are very much Europhiles, whereas our neighbours, a plurality of our neighbours, not a majority, to be fair, but a plurality nonetheless, did indeed vote to leave the EU 4.5 years ago. But Ireland is not the only place in our shared archipelago where Europe is very much loved. On the whole, the Scots are mad about the EU. Londoners are all for it, as are Mancunians. And if you dissect the data that we have from Northern Ireland's votes in the referendum, you can see that there was an interesting divide, and that the Irish, so to say, were, like their southern brethren, very much pro the EU on the whole, whereas the Unionists, the traditionally British, so to say, were on the whole against the EU in that referendum. The issue was not perfectly divided between the two sides, but it was fairly partisan, like many things in Northern Ireland. Many things in Northern Ireland are partisan, and just to go on a side note here, contrary to popular belief, the Irish side, so to say, in Northern Ireland have been traditionally pro-choice in the abortion question and pro-marriage equality. Many people are surprised to hear that, because Ireland was always seen as more conservative, and indeed was very much more conservative than Britain for a long time. But today it's changed somewhat a bit. The British side are more in favour of, I'm not going to say they're pro-life, because that implies that the other side are pro-death, but they're more anti-abortion, so to say, and they were not really in favour of marriage equality. Well, the representatives weren't for quite some time either. Now, I know I'm simplifying things again here. This is a very layered situation, and there could be many other things at play there. I'm just giving you a little overview of the data. It's wonderful to see that the border issue seems to be resolved, despite posturing. And that is very important, and many people are very, very happy with that fact and very much relieved. Because it's good to see the acceptance that you can't really legislate hatred or pain away. And unfortunately, in this part of our planet, there is still some hatred lingering, and there is still some pain lingering among people. And it simply needs more time to heal. I think that's a general consensus that people seem to be coming around to now. Just leave it alone for a while. Many people are over the past, which is great. But there are also many people who are not. And there are people who would have readily been up in arms, literally, if a border was put in place there. So it's very nice to see that it doesn't seem like this will happen. The border in this part of the world has always been quite difficult to manage. It's always been a very difficult issue. When Ireland partitioned from the United Kingdom, or from the Union, in 1921, a bipartite commission was set up to try and manage the border question. They spent 5 years trying to determine where to place the border, but they couldn't agree on it. So now we have the status quo, which is a very messy, meandering border that's very, very difficult to try and pinpoint, really. And putting up a physical border there would be extremely difficult. Even during the Troubles, which was essentially the kind of war that happened in Northern Ireland for quite some time, at any given point, there were between 10,000 and 30,000 British troops stationed along the Irish border. And they still couldn't police it. It's almost impossible to police. And that is because of the way it's set up. There are, just to give you some context, there are 137 border crossings across the entire eastern flank of the European Union. That entire vast area of land has 137 official crossings. There are 208 official crossings on the island of Ireland between the Republic and the UK. They are the official crossings. But it's more complicated than that, because the border actually exists in people's homes. Some people go to sleep in Northern Ireland and have breakfast in the Republic of Ireland. Like I said, it's a complicated issue, and let's just leave it aside for now. Anyway, enough of Northern Ireland. Let's have a look at why this is happening. Why are we at this point? How is this occurring? Why did the disenfranchised ultimately vote to be more disenfranchised? It was the victims of neoliberalism on the whole that voted for Brexit. And again, to simplify things, they did so because they were essentially lied to, really. I think most people believe that. I'm not saying anything controversial there. People felt like, and indeed still feel like, they lost control of their lives, of their realities. So when they were told that they could take back that control, they were understandably very excited. You would want to take back control too, if you were in that situation, I would imagine. And credit where credit's due, the Leave campaign ran an excellent campaign. That slogan is extremely clever. It's simple, it's concise, it's to the point. Take back control. Further, they insisted that the NHS would benefit hugely from leaving the EU, that funds could be diverted from Brussels' coffers into the NHS's coffers. This, although an example of blatant mendaciousness, was craftily cunning, absolutely. The Leave campaign on the whole was far better mobilised. It was far better organised than the Remain campaign. I was in England at the time. I was living in Manchester at the time. I was able to vote. Irish people are able to vote in the UK in local elections or referenda. UK citizens can do the same in Ireland. We have a special arrangement. We have practically the same rights, almost every right, as a British person does, and a British person also has almost every right that an Irish person does in Ireland, except on one thing. British people can't vote for our head of state, our president. And the excuse that's offered up is that we're not able to vote for the representative of the monarchy either. So further to being told that citizens or subjects could take back control, a type of vainglorious, belligerent speech was used that was reminiscent of wartime Britain, a time, of course, when Britain felt immensely proud of itself, understandably, after defeating the Nazis. It's very easy to tap into that type of pride and use it, and they did that very well. Fintan O'Toole, one of my favourite writers, if you have never experienced his work, I recommend that you do, further spoke about how the Leave campaign very intelligently tapped into an often overlooked element here too. Well, it was overlooked and now it's being discussed quite a bit actually, and that is the element of British exceptionalism. I can attest to that. My dad is from Ealing, and he often boasts about Britain's or England's marvellous history and its achievements. It's human nature really, isn't it? We like to identify with narratives, and I believe it's healthy, if anything, to try and give yourself up to something that's more powerful and more important than you are. It's sad, however, when that desire to feel part of a bigger thing is manipulated. And manipulated it certainly was. But there is something to look at here, and I will end on this, and that's that the puppet masters, those who were pulling the strings on the Leave side, may have achieved their goal, but they were quite myopic in their approach. Yes, they managed to rally those who they needed to rally. Yes, the UK is indeed leaving the EU. But for the most part, the people they rallied and the puppet masters themselves are seeking very different things from Brexit. The puppet masters, whom espouse Thatcherism, are seeking to continue with her doctrine. The masses that they rallied are frankly more interested in socialism than they are in that type of radical free market neoliberalism. And therein, I believe, is the crux of the problem. We don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know much right now, and there's not much we can do except wait and see how this whole thing plays out. And on that note, Merry Christmas.